So let's talk about net zero. We talk about this a lot. Rishi Sunak has been warned that rowing back on climate policies could defeat the object of protecting households from higher costs and actually make energy bills more expensive. Downing Street has confirmed ministers are scrutinising existing net zero pledges in light of some of the cost of living challenges. The PM said he's still committed to reaching the target by 2050, but has hinted at watering down some of the proposals designed to cut carbon emissions, saying measures must be proportionate and pragmatic instead of adding cost and hassles to householders. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is facing a backlash from Blue Wall Tories, who said that it will cost them their seats at the next election if he panders to the right of his party on climate change and human rights commitments. So there it is. Let's speak with Dale Vince on this, founder of Ecotricity, of course, the world's first green energy company. Afternoon to you, Dale. I guess I don't want to preempt your answer to this, but I'm assuming you're firmly in bed with some of those Tories on this.
That's a horrible thought. But look, there are two things being said to Sunak today. One is by his own MP saying that their seats are at risk if he continues down this path of rowing back on green commitments. And then there's another group, the AD, Association of Decentralized Energy. There are 140 companies in there working on renewable energy, and they're telling him it'll cost more, it'll add more to our bills if he does row back. And he's also been told that since David Cameron, the first Tory Prime Minister to actually row back on green stuff, since he did that about 10 years ago, he's added £2.5 billion a year to the nation's energy bill. So we've got evidence of the fact that it happens, and he's being warned not to do it again because this is what will happen. But, I don't think he cares, because he's the same Prime Minister that told us drilling in the North Sea can lower our energy bills. And that's completely counterfactual, as in untrue. And he's also said it will give us energy security, and the same thing applies. It's completely untrue. I don't think he cares for the truth of the situation. He's juggling a split party, as I think you said at the start of this, and trying to muddle his way through and find a divisive cause with which he can hope to win the next election.
But isn't the problem, Dale, that even if, and the room does divide on net zero, maybe it's because we don't know enough about it, but isn't the problem that we know that it will be more expensive? Everything will be more expensive. We'll have to have an electric car. We've got to have these heat pumps in our homes, and goodness knows what else. There's a big old fat list there. Petrol will therefore become more expensive. Probably food will as well. So overall, this is going to cost the average person who's already struggling a lot of money.
Yeah, well, I disagree. Heat pumps, I think, are a bad idea. So I agree there. We shouldn't be having them. They will put energy bills up. But we have the alternative. We can make gas from grass. And electric cars are not that much more expensive to buy now. But if you look at the total cost of ownership, as in maintenance and fuel costs, they're actually cheaper. You look across the board and there's a balanced outcome. But the OBR, the Office of Budgetary Responsibility, told Sunak just 2 weeks ago it will cost twice as much to stick with fossil fuels as it will if we transition to green energy. So the idea that this adds to the cost of living burden is untrue.
Just answer this question then that comes up time and time again. We've discussed it many times. The wind doesn't always blow. The sun doesn't always shine. Where are we going to get all that energy from?
That's correct. We're in a transition period. We're at about 40% green electricity on the grid. We haven't had power cuts yet due to relying on renewable energy. And as we transition, we'll be turning down the fossil power stations while we turn up the green energy. In between all of that, we're building something called the smart grid, where we have grid scale storage using batteries and some emerging technologies, and we manage the load on the grid more smartly. And electric cars have a big part to play in this because we can plug them in at home. And right now, all of the cars on the roads of Britain have a bigger power rating combined than all of the power stations in Britain. When they're electric and we plug them in at home, which 70% of people can do every evening, we have a massive storage potential of energy we can either give or take to the grid. This is completely solvable. The national grid says it.
Okay, but the electric car has a pretty horrific carbon footprint in itself, doesn't it, Dan? I mean, maybe it will change going forward, but from cradle to grave, as they say, there's some fairly nefarious stats around the electric car as well.
Well, if you look at the electric car compared to the internal combustion engine, 20% of the carbon footprint or the impact of a combustion engine is in the manufacture and 80% is in its life cycle. If you look at an electric car, it's the other way around. It's 80% in manufacture, 20% in the life cycle, but they will last longer. Just a couple of weeks ago, we launched an electric airline, and in the doing of that, we found some statistics about aircraft engines. It's very similar with cars, but I remember this one right now. 16,000 moving parts in an aircraft engine, internal combustion, 16 in an electric equivalent, just 16. That's 1,000 less moving parts, makes a huge difference to length of life and cost of maintenance.
Just a word while you're with us, Dale. The Labour Party, I know this is your preferred government of choice. You've thrown a few quid their way, nothing wrong or illegal about that. But are you disappointed when you see the Labour Party rowing back on policies? We saw that the amount of money they want to spend in this area is going to be reduced. Today we hear that Labour are scrapping its commitment to setting up ULEZ-style clear air zones across the country. This isn't the party you gave £10 trillion to, is it?
Clearly not. I never had that to give away. But look, I hadn't heard the ULEZ story. I am disappointed by that. If that's actually correct, I'm disappointed. I think it comes out of the recent by-election when both parties rushed to judge the Tories holding that seat by 495 votes, a seat that Tony Blair never won in his pomp. And he was a very popular prime minister. I think they both rushed to judge it as a ULEZ issue. And I think that's wrong. We're about to do some research in that constituency to try and put some data to that guesswork by both parties. But at the moment, it is informing on both sides of the House, let's say, a kind of rowing back from green policies, which is worrying.
Are you going to ask Keir Starmer for your money back, Dale?
Absolutely not. But I would just want to say this. I love the idea of cards in cigarette packets, right? It just goes back to, I don't know, when I was a kid, not that I was a smoker, but, you know,
collecting them.
Absolutely, from smokers. You know, I just want to say we should take the same idea and we should stick cards in packets of bacon to show people what happens when they eat this stuff. Food is a big issue.
Well, you get a nice taste of satisfaction and you rather enjoyed your bacon sarnie. Isn't that what happens?
That's the short term, right?
Colonel Sanders.
Same with smoking, right? It tastes all right when you're doing it. And then later on, you've got type 2 diabetes and your left leg has to come off. That's true.
And there's nothing worse than that happening. Far worse than your right leg coming off.
Yes.
Dale, thank you.